Good afternoon. This is Andy Biggs, Congressman from Arizona's 5th Congressional District. I'm so happy you joined us on our teletown hall this evening. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. Of course, the coronavirus and its impacts on our lives that all of us are living. I want to stress to you, if you have a question, please press star 3. Star 3 for questions, and we'll try to answer as many of those as we can. I also want to let you know that as we go throughout the course of this teletown hall tonight, I have what I consider to be some up-to-date information that I'd love to share with you about what I'm learning from various government agencies as well as some of our private sector friends. But I have a special guest with me today. Again, press star 3 for questions. But one of our great patriots in this state is our current Attorney General, Mark Brnovich, who does such a great job and has fought so fearlessly for states' rights in the federal courts, and that's such an important thing. He's done a great job, and we've asked him to come on because in these types of situations we see an increase in consumer fraud. There's great people out there trying to do their best right now under duress, and there's other people who try to take advantage of that. So without further ado, I've invited Attorney General Mark Brnovich to take a few minutes. Mark, please, Attorney General.
Congressman Biggs, thank you very much for having me on tonight. I thank everyone also for being on the line. I'm Attorney General Mark Brnovich, as Congressman Biggs said. I thank you all again for tuning in, and I am going to assume at this point that this is probably the only time a group of people on a phone call are excited to hear from elected officials during their dinner. But I know that Congressman Biggs always has a lot of great things to say, and hopefully I can add some things as well to keep everyone out there staying safe and positive. And I know that all of us are doing everything we can to flatten the proverbial curve we keep hearing about, but flattening that curve is also about not only taking precautions from your health, but also stopping scammers from flattening your bank account, so to speak. And so I will tell you, me personally, and I've said this before, I'm a middle class, public school kid from Arizona, and when I see people exploiting vulnerable people in the middle of a public health crisis, it absolutely disgusts me. And I want everyone that's called to know that we have attorneys and staff throughout the state working at the Arizona Attorney General's office around the clock to identify new scams, to protect Arizonans, and to make sure we're getting the word out to the public and going after bad actors. I will tell you one thing that we have seen is a lot of new spins and old frauds. I say, as someone who used to prosecute gangs, that back in the day you needed a gun and a face mask to rip people off. Now all you need is a computer and a phone. And so our office itself, we know that we have seen since January more than 5,000 coronavirus/COVID-19 related new domain names have been registered around the world. We know the scammers follow the headlines. And so one of the things that we have seen is people pitching miracle cures and treatments. And we just want everyone to know that this has happened whenever there's been, catastrophes or disasters, whether it's hurricanes, wildfires, that you will get a group of people moving in saying that they have some sort of, cure or something that'll solve the problem. But I just want to let everyone know that we have not seen any sort of magic home testing kits. There's no toothpaste, supplements, essential oils, or any of that kind of stuff that's going to stop the spread of the virus. In fact, one of the stories I want to tell you about is in my mom's neighborhood here in Phoenix. There was someone going door to door saying they were from the CDC, or saying that they could and wanted to come in the house to inspect for coronavirus. The CDC, the census, the government will never come by your house. Someone from the government will never come by saying they have some sort of miracle solution that's going to clean your house or protect you. So please, never give a stranger access to your home. We know in the old days that sometimes people would use pretexts like being from the utility companies or something like that in order to get to a house and do a home invasion. So we want to make sure people are being very, very safe. We've already shut down several illegal telemarketing products that supposedly could combat the virus as well. In fact, most recently, just a few days ago on Friday, we issued a cease and desist order to a business that was marketing products they said could help you prevent coming down with the quote-unquote life-threatening virus. And and the product was called Corona V tincture. We know that they wasn't health approved, wasn't what it says they was. So basically, there was no scientific evidence to support that claim, and many of these products don't have that. So be really, really careful if anyone is promising you something to cure it when they know they can't. So I know that we've also worked with Congressman Biggs, and once again, this is Attorney General Mark Brnovich, on getting the word out on other scams. We know now with the recent passage of the Congressman Biggs, I can't remember what you guys call it, the bill that just passed to mitigate the impacts of coronavirus. The government is going to be sending checks to people, and we have already seen scam emails, text messages, even phone calls from people saying they're from the government, asking for your personal information, asking for your bank information. And so I want everyone here on this call, one big takeaway: the government will never contact you, whether the IRS will not contact you, the Social Security Administration will not contact you, the Treasury Department will not contact you. No one from the government will ever contact you asking you for bank information, for your Social Security number, for any sort of personal information in order to receive a government benefit. Frankly, the government does not call you. It's not what they do. Additionally, if there are other businesses that ask you to put money up front for any sort of medicine or treatment or anything else, be very, very wary, because a legitimate business is not going to ask you to pay that money up front. So I think that as we were all taught, or we all learned when we were growing up here, that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So please do not click on any unknown links. Do not open attachments from someone you don't recognize. In fact, just last night, my wife literally got an email from someone that said that we had money coming to us, and to click on some link. And clearly that was a scam. It was a fraud. But even the best of people sometimes can, think, oh, wait a minute, they sent me a personal email. They must, it must be for me. And once again, that stuff's a scam. So never share your bank account, Social Security number, or send money via a PayPal account to anyone. As I said, I think it's really important for all of us to, be aware of the guidelines. Stay healthy. Obviously we want to physically do things like, wear a mask, stay 6 feet away, make sure we're washing our hands, practicing good hygiene. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're using our mental facilities as well, and that means making sure that we don't fall victim to a scam, that we make sure that we're very wary of people trying to take advantage of us. And if I can add one thing to this call, kind of before I wrap up, is tomorrow's National Giving Day. And we know that a lot of times as Arizonans, we're very giving people. There's a lot of people I know on this call that donate a lot of time and money to folks, and we have good hearts. But the bad guys, they take advantage of that as well. And so whether it's a GoFundMe page, which I personally would never give to a GoFundMe page anytime, because you don't know whether it's legit, not legit, how much money is going to the charity, or whether it's someone calling your house saying they're from some charity. You don't know how much that money is actually going to the charity versus not. So just be very wary of anyone asking you for money. And if you want to donate, if you want to give, there are legitimate charities, and use the internet to your advantage. Check with the Better Business Bureau. Check with CharityNavigator.com. Check with folks that you have donated to in the past, like maybe your churches or your houses of worship. And so I want everyone on this call to know that the Attorney General's office is very serious. We're very aggressive in going after folks that are taking advantage of people. But as I said, a big part of that is making sure that all of us stay safe as well, not only physically safe, but also using our mind, being mentally alert. So thank you, Congressman.
Thank you, Attorney General Brnovich. Great information, and very important at this time. Hey, I wanted to ask you a question before you run off. Is if someone does suspect that there's consumer fraud or they see fraud, where can they get more information, or what should they do?
Thank you for the question. The short answer is report it to our office. You can find us online at www.azag.gov. There's consumer complaint forms online. Last year we received about 15,000 consumer complaints, and we're already starting to see consumer fraud complaints related to the coronavirus. And so we actually have a page, a link set up on our homepage with information, the latest scams, the latest issues related to our office and the COVID-19. So please go there, and remember that we can't investigate something if we don't know about it. And so even if you haven't been the victim of a fraud, but you see something that looks fraudulent or it's suspicious, or someone sends you a text message saying they're from the Census Bureau or something, wanting your information in order to get a check, please report to our office so we can investigate. Please check our website frequently. I'm very proud of that. Since I've been AG, we have helped return almost $100 million in restitution to Arizona consumers. And so, we're not only vigorously protecting the Constitution, we're vigorously protecting consumers here in Arizona. So thank you all very much, and be safe, everyone.
Thanks, Mark. Have a great night. And ladies and gentlemen, that was Attorney General Mark Byrne.
Thanks, Andy. Bye-bye.
Thank you. We're so glad he would take a few minutes. This is an important time. And if you want to ask questions, we have a queue that's forming. It's press *3, and that'll get you some questions. I wanted to share just a couple of thoughts before we get into questions. First of all, one of the great things that we see happening is when community partners come together. I wanted to share two quick instances for you. One is Allstate Insurance Company is going to give $600 million back to their customers in April and May. They're calling it their shelter-in-place program. And basically, it's going to work like this. Auto insurance customers will reportedly receive 15% money back based on their monthly premium in April and May. And then they're going to provide additional benefits to their customers. I think that's just really something that's laudable, and that's a big company that's doing that, and it's great to see that. But I also want to let you know that I'm aware of so many instances for individuals that are also providing help to the community. I know of one of an individual who's paying monthly expenses for friends and family members who are struggling because the situation cut off their income. And additionally, I know another person who's donated funding for video communication systems to our hospitals, one of our local hospital systems, so that those people who might be suffering or dying might have access to be able to communicate with their loved ones in this special time of need. So those are the type of things I think that they're just so absolutely important, that we remember the goodness in the community as well as we face some of these trials and challenges that we have. I want to real quick give you an update on some coronavirus issues that are going on. Some are nationwide, and then as we go along through the evening, I'll probably get to some of the Arizona specific. But in New York, there's 3,000 additional medical professionals who are deploying to New York. The USNS Comfort, the ship that's in the up there in New York, is now allowing New Jersey patients as well, and they're going to treat coronavirus patients. Right now, the current number as of earlier today was well over 1.7 million tests have been performed nationwide. Additionally, there's been 30 million doses of hydroxychloroquine ordered by the United States government, and trials have begun on 3,000 patients. California, Governor Newsom is returning 500 ventilators that were provided to California from the federal government because they don't believe they will need those now, and that means they can go to other places. And with that, that gives you just a little update of some of the things going on. Again, press *3 for questions. We're going to take our first question. We're going to go to Paul in Chandler. Paul.
Yes, thank you, Congressman, for your time. I really appreciate it. I got a few bones to pick with you.
Absolutely.
The last stimulus bill that you guys put through, how can all that stuff break through? $150 million for the arts and all that, and then they lay them off. We have children here that need fed for schooling. We have older people that need to be taken care of. And also we have veterans that are on the street, and yet we're going to relocate other people in this country. I don't understand. The whole world's turning upside down here. I don't know what's going on there in Washington, but you guys got to get together, and there's something wrong.
Stop the Democrats.
Stop. And then now they're talking about a fourth bill and about stuff or the infrastructure and all that. That should have been done years ago. Now we are into a corner. We can't afford that. If you're going to want to wipe out the country, that's a pretty good way to do it. Thank you.
Paul. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate the call. And just I want to review some of the things that Paul talked about that were in that last bill. By the way, there were 5 people who voted no, I being one of those. And they did not allow this to be in a normal recorded vote fashion. What they did is they made this into what was called a voice vote type of process. And what that is, you just shout out, and then you file your position how you would have voted with the congressional record. Mine will be filed tomorrow. So I just want to point out some of the things that Paul might have been concerned about, and so here's the way to think of some of them. The unemployment compensation portion of the bill was never made right. In the Senate, they recognized that they had a problem where you would get actually more wages from unemployment than you would if you were employed, and that might have a perverse incentive. So some of the senators tried to get it fixed. They couldn't get the votes to get it fixed, so they just rammed it through the House as well. But there were some non-essential, non-emergency related funding that Paul alluded to. So they gave money to the Kennedy Center, $25 million, and the Kennedy Center then immediately terminated all their musicians. National Public Radio got money. Smithsonian got money. The Institute of Museum and Library Sciences had their annual budget increased by 2.5 times. National Endowments for the Arts and Humanities. They also had a provision in there that strengthened union participation in private sectors. They gave $88 million to the Peace Corps, which coincidentally, just 10 days before the vote, fired more than 7,000 volunteers in 66 different countries. The bill spent millions more for refugee assistance, election security, and the Department of Education. And the point to be considered, getting to Paul's point, is to realize that some of this may be actually worthwhile and worth discussing, but you wouldn't normally see that in a relief package. And so there were some issues with that package. Paul, you're exactly right. You also raised the what they're calling the Phase 4 package. I've been watching what Speaker Pelosi wants, and Chuck Schumer just said today that he wants $2 trillion more in a Phase 4 package and another $2 trillion more in a Phase 5 package. So, Paul, I will continue to be vigilant. Some people will agree with me who call in tonight. Others will disagree with me. I appreciate everyone calling in. But for me, if we want to make sure that folks get the assistance that they need on a temporary basis to help us carry through, it should have been targeted, it should have been direct, and it should have had none of the accoutrement of the pork that was thrown into this thing. So now we're going to go to Darlene. Darlene, are you there?
Hello?
Hi there. Is this Darlene?
This is Serena.
Serena? Hi, Serena. This is Andy. How are you?
Hi. I went to the hospital and I died before. And I had problems with my seizures and epilepsies.
Uh-huh.
And I had problems with my stomach before. And I had some tests on my mouth and I can't eat food anymore.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah.
And I have a
Very
question
hard.
myself.
Yes.
I'm kind of sick here home now without mom and dad and my two brothers and my nephew. And my grandma just died.
Oh my goodness gracious. This is just a terrible situation that you're talking about. Serena, I am wondering if we can talk some more offline. I want to give you my number so you and I can maybe get together and we can find out what we can do to provide you with some assistance. So I'm going to give you my number. It's 480-699-8239, and I want you to make sure you ask for David. He is my district director. He runs the office here in Mesa, and I want to make sure you talk with him, and then he and I will. He can report to me, and he and I can try to put together a plan. See if we can help you out. I'm terribly sorry for the hardships you've been going through, Serena. We're now going to go to Janice. Janice, are you there? Hi, Janice. Hello? We're going to go next to Eric. Do we have Eric?
Hello, Congressman.
Hello there. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I appreciate you taking these moments to share with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for calling in.
Well, my first compliments to you on your no vote for the stimulus package because of all of the pork that was in it. My question specifically is directed toward some of the pork that you might be aware of, and one specific thing that I'm concerned about is the Streamlined Small Cell Deployment Act. Has that been included in any of these stimulus packages that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm actually taking a note on that so I can look back and see. It's called the Streamlined Small
Streamlined Small Cell Deployment Act, which has to do with the 5G.
My understanding is that was not put in, that was taken out at the last minute. But
is there any chance?
I'll double check on that, Eric.
Okay, I sure appreciate that. Is there any chance that any of these other stimulus packages would be including that by any way?
Yes, there is a chance because right now there's two trains of thought on this. One is to very target specific populations that might need a specific assistance, and to limit the next package to that. The other side of the coin is that there are people who want to just really have a very broad approach, including things that exceed the normal corona virus concerns. So that would be part of your Streamlined Small Cell Development, or the 5G Act, which is what we tend to call it around Congress as the 5G Act. So that's why I didn't recognize it. But yeah, the reality is there is a chance that gets put in a bill in the future, and we just had a conference call today, one of many that we have every day, dealing with various issues, and that particular issue did not come up, but it was, I believe, in the Senate bill for a significant portion, or at least a few days last time, and we'll see how it goes this time. I appreciate you calling in, Eric. We're going to go to Dr. Jeffrey.
Yes,
Jeffrey,
hello?
are you there? Hi there.
I'm
Thanks
here.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Dr. Jeff Gorelick from Chandler, Arizona. Thanks for putting on this call. I really appreciate it and your constituents. My question, I'll make it brief. As a small business owner and a dentist, I can't really apply for unemployment. I'm kind of holding my breath with the SBA CARES Act. It seems like even the people that wrote it aren't fully aware of how it's going to be implemented. The lenders don't seem to know the full extent of it. So my question, and just to the point, is what's your best guess as to the application process, how long it's going to be, when we might see a check, if we're going to see a check, if the money's not all used up? When can we see the light at the end of the tunnel? Best guess.
And you're talking specifically about the SBA portion, or small business portion of the CARES Act. Is that right?
Well, yeah. There's the Relief Act. There's the PPP. There's so much going on. I called up my business insurance, and apparently there's a disclaimer. There's a clause in the business insurance. So if a truck went through the wall or a water main broke, I would be covered. But for viruses, I have no coverage.
That's correct. So Dr. Gerlich, I want you to know I've checked a bit into that, and that seems to be true. So if you had business interruption insurance, most of them have a standardized clause which kind of excludes this kind of event, like a coronavirus event.
Well, of course, I understand they're in business for making money, and they have to have provisions to cover these kinds of catastrophic things.
Yeah.
We have the government, that's
so
we all work together.
So specifically with the PPP program, I'll just explain that for people who aren't aware what this portion of the program is. It was in the CARES Act, and it included $350 billion in Small Business Administration guarantees to loans. The loans are being processed through local and community banks. You can go to your local banker. They should be able to get you in so where you can fill out the application for that short-term loan through the Small Business Administration.
There was a snafu in that. I've been banking with Bank of America for over 20 years, and it turns out because I don't owe anybody any money and don't take out loans and don't overextend myself, I wasn't one of their premier people. So the people that have loans with Bank of America got to fill out the application, and those of us that actually have good credit and don't take out loans with Bank of America don't get to fill out the application. So I've been scurrying around trying to find other institutions that will take my application.
Yeah, that's really not supposed to necessarily be the way it works. It's supposed to apply to all small business people. It's also supposed to apply to sole proprietors, people in the gig economy.
No. I understand what's logical. I also understand their business etiquette. If think about it. If you had a loan with Bank of America and you went under, Bank of America wouldn't get paid back their loan.
Right.
So
that's right.
I don't have a loan with Bank of America, so I am not as important to them from their bottom line.
Right.
But I'm going to be switching banks. I'm going to switch banks, and I'm going to give my business to someone else. But that's besides the point. I guess what I would love to, your best guess, because obviously you don't have a crystal ball, but if each bank does their due diligence and fills out the things, and SBA funds the loans, what is Congress's expectation as to when money would actually be funded? A week, a month, 2 months?
No, it's already funded. So they distributed over the weekend over $5 billion. $30 billion, including today. So they've already been
in the bank account. It's in the bank accounts of the bank.
You got it.
Oh. Wow, that must be really a great day for banks.
It is a great day for banks. I mean, you understand it better than most.
Yeah, Yeah, they're making interest. Oh, well, anyway, they're making money off the money. Okay. So
That's right. They're making money on the money, and that was part of the strangeness of this whole thing. Don't forget too, Doctor, and most people probably aren't aware of this, that the Friday before this bill passed, so it was about a week before this passed, the Fed put $1.5 trillion into the economy, and then the Monday added another $1 trillion into the economy in liquidity. This CARES package bill also gives the Fed $4 trillion worth of liquidity, and most of that money is being, ostensibly, it's supposed to be getting to Main Street, but some of it, as you wisely,
there's a lot of Main Streets throughout. There's a lot of Main Streets throughout the country. Chandler, Arizona is not just the only main street. So
oh no, that's right. But I mean,
it's a finite amount of money, and if you don't get on the front of the line, if you're on the back of the line, even if they say you win, you lose.
Yeah, that's why it's right now currently, and I'd love to talk to you some more about it. So I'll give you my number too, and it's 480-699-8239. 480-699-8239. Feel free to call, and we'll try to get a time when I can talk to you, maybe talk you through some of this, and if you need specific help, we've got folks on my staff that can help you get to the right institutions, because quite frankly, there are only 1,800 institutions around the country, and there's another 2,500 or so institutions, lending institutions, that are trying to get SBA approval so they can give out these loans. And in any event, Doctor, thank you. I'm sorry you're having a hard time with your financial institution and getting there so you can get into the line, but looking forward to talking to you about it some more. Let me go next to Larry. Hi, Larry.
How are you, sir?
I'm good.
My question is I know we have a lot of pork, and I don't understand why some of that wasn't fought off before the fact, but what's done is done. I think the next question was, oh gosh, I forgot what my next question was. Well, I have an issue. I spent 6 years in the Marine Corps back around the Vietnam days, and I made E5, which was great. But when I got out, I wasn't eligible for the VA. So any loan I've had in my lifetime, I've paid dearly for it. Not able to qualify for the VA because I didn't serve 6 months in 1 day. Now, if we give away all this money, why can't we do it for somebody that's working for a living and has stuck his neck out for 6 years? I was on the line. It could have been called up at any day, but I'm not eligible for the VA. So I just think that's, if we can give money away to every stranger that walks across the border, we can take care of the Marines and the service guys that were in the reserves that didn't necessarily get called up. So that's the biggest issue. So
fair enough, Larry, and it's a great point. And to be honest with you, when I've actually raised this before, and I was told that this kind of they took a point and they said this is the point. In my opinion, it may have been somewhat arbitrary, but that's what they decided to get to that point. And I just want to cover something else you talked about, is giving money out to everybody. So in this last bill, they're going to write checks of totaling $500 billion that are going out. They're going to be direct deposited in your account of $1,200 for a person, an adult, $500 for a child in that household, and it's going to be if you make $75,000 or less, you get that full amount. If you make an additional up to $100,000, it gets prorated out, and I'm not quite sure what that is, how it gets down, but if you make more than $100,000, you don't get that money. But Larry, your point is well taken. In my opinion, we should be looking at veterans. We've got veterans that are homeless, veterans who need their medication, veterans who need assistance in so many ways. We need to really, really take care of the men and women who have sacrificed so very much on behalf of this great country, and we're grateful for your service. I I remind you, press star 3 if you have questions. We're trying to just take them as we get them. So we're going to go now to Mary in Gilbert. Mary.
Hi, Congressman.
Hi, Mary. How are you?
We're doing fine, thank you, sir. Like everyone else, we're a little concerned about the pork. What I don't quite understand is why are we not filing malfeasance, misfeasance of office, according to Ms. Pelosi?
Well, okay, so just so you know that I've introduced motions of censure, and which is kind of one of the sternest things you can do in the House of Representatives. And we can't get those heard, and the reason we can't get them heard is because Speaker Pelosi's party is in control of the House. So they kind of control committee chairmanships, they control what gets brought to the floor, they can control everything because it's by majority vote in the United States Congress. And so, in my opinion...
Congressman, I understand that process. What I don't understand is it doesn't take a vote. Maybe it does. Let me think about that a minute. Couldn't just an ordinary citizen require charges of malfeasance of office, misfeasance of funds? There's
you could. You might have trouble with that. I will say that it's right now the best way that you change offices is through elections, and we continue. Myself particularly, I continue to call out Mr. Schiff, Ms. Pelosi, and her team. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up when her whip, third highest ranking Democrat in the House of Representatives, said this is a great opportunity to remake America. That's the type of thing that you just go, that's a little shaky. We shouldn't be doing that. But Mary, I appreciate your sentiment and I appreciate your call, and I'll keep working on that, see what we can do. And we're going to go now next to Russell. Hi, Russell.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing tonight?
Good. So I applied for a PPP loan for my daughter's business on April 3rd, Friday morning at 8:30 in the morning, and was told that we would get some kind of continuance of application. Been checking for emails, phone calls to either her or myself, and we haven't received anything. And then when I was on the Wells Fargo business site today, they said they're not accepting any more applications. Now I'm assuming that ours went through, but they said they've already made $10 billion of commitment, and so they're not accepting any applications. Luckily, she had a business checking account for the last 2 years, and so she was an established customer. But is there a person in your office that I can talk to maybe see if if her application was received?
You bet. Yeah. So I want to just address two things, but first I'll tell you, Christina in my district office, and again that number is 480-699-8239. Christina can help there. And we'll
okay, that's my daughter's name too, so I didn't.
Okay, so you can remember that. Good.
Yeah.
And then,
what is the number again?
480-699-8239.
8239. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, because these loans are not really processing, I think, as they were intended. But it's a new thing, so you can understand that these banks are getting inundated with requests. Hers is pretty simple. She's a woman under 50 employees, and that's what Wells Fargo says they're focusing on.
And
I should.
And you have to understand,
Christina.
Wells Fargo. I'll just tell you, Russell. Wells Fargo has a bit of a problem because
I know.
they were limited to $10 billion because of some past infractions that they had, supposedly. I don't know this. This is what we were briefed on this today because they maxed out very quickly on their $10 billion, and that was ostensibly because of some regulatory constraints placed upon Wells Fargo by the Department of Treasury. So that's the information I have on that. And what I would tell you is also the amount of money that's going out 1 week after initiating 1 week after the bill is what I was told today is about 2.5 times as much as they normally process in a year through the SBA. So you're going to see these kind of glitches, but wherever we can, we've been given information on how we can try to get some of that to help some of our constituents. So I'll make sure my staff knows that information, and we'll make sure that we can do all we can to help you, Russell, and folks in your spot. So with that, we're going to go next to Joseph in Mesa. Joseph? Hi, Joseph. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine, and I really appreciate you, Andy. You just do such a great job, and just really appreciate everything you're doing to try to help us save our country. This is probably way out in left field, but I'm wondering if anybody has considered or is investigating or given any thought to the possibility that this entire China virus thing may be a planned assault by the Chinese on America. I read an interesting speculative article in which someone has pointed out that the virus, as apparently, as nearly as anyone knows, has never had any impact in Shanghai or Beijing, and Wuhan is suddenly back in business again. And the speculation is that the Chinese actually created this virus and have an antidote, and that's why they're not having the problems that the rest of the world is having. Have you heard anything like that, or is this just way too far out in left field?
There's been speculation about that. I do know that the administration is tried to work with China. They were very secretive and closed-mouthed about this for a long time. And as recently as about 3 weeks ago, they would only let a max of 2 health officials, high-ranking health officials from the U.S. be in there to kind of monitor, and we had to rotate them out. So, I mean, I don't know whether this was done intentionally or not, but that the impact of what's happened in China has been carried over quite a bit to us, and we've got to really have a tough time building this thing back, our economy back up. Just most people tend to forget. I want to just remind everyone that it was only about 5 weeks ago that our economy was considered by a lot of people the best in its history, the lowest unemployment rate, the most people employed, real wages were increasing, there was no inflation to speak of. The economy was healthy and solid and strong, and we see how quickly something like even a virus can impact our economy, impact our morale as a nation. And so I think for us, we've got to keep working hard trying to make sure that we accomplish containment of this virus, and at the same time preservation of our civil liberties, and also at the same time preservation of our economy. These things are all important. They all intersect, and we just have to be all over this to make sure we get these things accomplished. I appreciate the call, Joseph. Thanks so much. I'm going to go to next up is Flint in Mesa.
Hi, Andy.
Hi, Flint.
Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure. How are you?
Well, actually, I have a sinus infection, but I don't have COVID, but I may sound like it. But I have a question on an idea. I'm of the mindset that if we'd done the herd immunity plan, that we'd probably already be through this as a nation with a lot less casualties than starvation that's in our future if we continue this pathway. So my idea is, since we have a COVID antibodies test, why don't we make that free for every citizen in America to go get an antibodies test? And therefore, if you've already had COVID and you've come out the other side of it, you're free to have your life back. You're free to start your business back up. You're free to go forward to church. You're free to go travel. You're free to practice capitalism again.
Flint, great question, Flint. I appreciate it very much. So let me just cover a couple of ideas with that. You're talking about serological testing, which we're just now seeing that disseminated more widely. And now you can also, and that's really what we need to do. Because right now we don't even know what the denominator is as we look at the impact of the coronavirus. We have no idea who's had coronavirus or COVID-19. People often don't realize that the SARS virus was a coronavirus, but that here there may be, and I'll just clarify for folks who are listening in wondering what Flint's talking about when he says herd immunity. What he's talking about is where people where the entire population kind of gets exposed to a disease and develops the antibodies, which gives them some immunity going forward. And that's really what I think Flint's talking about. There is a test that is out there. It just has to get distributed and used and measured, because and quite frankly, it's free. In the current state of things, that testing is free. We just have to get it out there, get it widely spread out there, so we know what's going on, and then you'll get a real picture of who's had it and who hasn't had it. Don't forget that Dr. Fauci said last I want to say Thursday or Friday. The days kind of blend together with all the information that we're getting, But the reality is, there's this that he didn't trust many of the models that are out there because none of them have been proven to be accurate at all. And I don't want to misconstrue what he said. That's what I took from what he said. And one of the things that would help us get a clearer picture is if we had a significantly large sample of those who have had this disease already and have cured. So something in the neighborhood of 65-75% are virtually asymptomatic of this disease, according to health briefings I've received. And if that's the case, a lot of people may not even know that they have it, which is one of the reasons that our vulnerable populations, we need to take care of our most vulnerable populations. But Flint, your idea is correct. It is correct in that if we could get enough tests out there, we could get this thing and get this done in a way that could get this country open again. And I think that's really critical for where we need to be. I appreciate the call, Flint. We're going to go to Linda now. Linda in Queen Creek.
Hi, Congressman. I want to reemphasize about how appreciative most of us out here are with your great efforts to do what is right for our country. And working on what you just said, is there any kind of guesstimate timeline as to when we're going to start bringing back our economy? Because I am seriously worried about these stimulus packages being passed. That is going to bring down our economy faster than anything else without us having a real ample working population.
Yeah, great question. So we have specifically asked in one of the conference calls, one of the briefings I had last Friday, again maybe it's Thursday, was we were asking our health task force people in place, what does it look like before you would allow the economy to open up at least another significant portion of the economy? Don't forget, we have literally millions of businesses that are open that have been deemed essential, and they follow a lot of these the protocols that are in place. But it's just because somebody has said they're essential and somebody else is non-essential that we have closed some of these. But as we asked the medical professional who is helping make some of these decisions, he says he doesn't know. He didn't know, and that's one of the big problems here is they don't seem to know what it is that would trigger their willingness to say all clear, reopen the economy. That's problematic, right? I mean, that's really tough. So I want to put some of this in context just from a fiscal point of view. Here's the way to think of it. Prior to when the economy was great, so just a few weeks ago, we'd already exceeded $1 trillion in structural deficit spending for this year, and we were only about halfway through the fiscal year. That's not good. And then you had phase 2, and phase 3 of these relief packages come, and those are going to total about $2.5 trillion. So you are not, and plus the additional cost of just running government for the next 5-6 months. You really look at increasing our structural deficit by $4 trillion in this fiscal year alone. And Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer both said they want an additional package of $2 trillion, and Chuck Schumer said he wants an additional $2 on top of that. So imagine if that were to really come into play, that'd be an $8 trillion structural deficit for fiscal year 2020 alone, and that would mean that you would take your national debt to somewhere up about between 26 and 30 trillion dollars, and at the same time, economists are saying that this quarter our growth in the economy is contracting, and actually we're not cutting into the bone yet, but we could get to the bone, and the result will be, and this is just for context, the result will be that your national debt will exceed your growth, your annual growth, which is GDP. It would be about 108 to 110, maybe a little bit higher even, percent. And if that's the case, then you run into a kind of a sovereign debt crisis, and that has all kinds of implications that are not good, either short-term or long-term. And I spoke to a well-known economist today. If I told you his name today, you would know who he is. To give us impressions of this, and he and I are going to be speaking publicly on, I think, in a couple of days, I believe, about this issue, because it is one that we need to be aware of. We need to be aware of, and this gets back to what President Trump said, is the cure worse than the disease? And we really need to get the economy open as much as possible, as soon as possible. And Linda, I appreciate your thoughtful question, and we're going to go now to Steve in, I don't know where you are, Steve, but we're at you.
I'm in Mesa.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for calling in tonight.
Yes, thank you for taking my question here. We've had kind of a rough time with this coronavirus and losing business. And I'm a small business owner. I own a facility on Falcon Field out here at the airport. And we applied for this PPL to see if we could keep our employees going. And everything was fine until today. They called back and said the SBA won't approve it because we filed for Chapter 11, and anybody in Chapter 11 they would not approve. And we filed for that under other circumstances other than not having money. We paid our bills and everything. We just had some lease problems. But is there any other alternatives to the SBA that they can approve something?
Well, so I just want to ask you one or two questions, and then I'm going to tell you that I want to work with. Maybe we can work offline on this,
Okay.
because there's going to be a lot of people listening in, and maybe we don't need to take your business out in front of a lot of people. But I just a real quick question: Are you under the auspices of Chapter 11 right now as we speak?
Yes.
Okay.
And we can come out of it. I can. Tomorrow if we wanted to start, but the process takes probably 30 days.
Sure. Yeah, that's right. And so, and you applied late last week and received notification today. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the bank seems okay with it. They said they went back to the SBA, and there's a box on there that says, if you're in Chapter 11 and you check that box, it says they will not approve it.
Well, here's what I want to do. Let's get together offline. I want you to talk with I think it's Christina on my staff, and the number is 480-699-8239, and there's a path where we can ask questions more directly of the Treasury Department about this. And so, Steve, I appreciate the call. Let's plan on you getting together tomorrow with by phone with my staff, and then we'll see what we can do. Is that all right? Great. Thanks, Steve. I really appreciate you calling in. Next, we're going to go to Randall. Hi, Randall.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Randall. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah. Hey, Andy. Great to hear from you. Hey, first of all, I appreciate hearing that you would have, if you're allowed to do the vote for the stimulus bill, that you would have voted no. Appreciate Thomas Massey for sticking his neck out politically to make sure that at least voted constitutionally. I'm glad that I was going to try to find out if you were going to vote no. I'm glad that you would have. Number two is that my main concern is the different power grabs going on right now, from the local cities to the states to the federal government, all the different, emergencies, the power grabs that all these different politician governments are getting, and then afterwards, what's going to look like after. And I know that you're not necessarily in control of local and state and whatnot, but you definitely have connections and a platform to speak about. So I'm really curious on your thoughts on that and what kind of your ideas on how you could help it not, revolutionize, change our Constitution and just all this craziness with the power grabs. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Randall, for calling in for that question. One of the things that really concerns me about this is indeed the use of executive authority at the state and local levels to basically abrogate constitutional rights. Everything from I was just actually working on a piece on this today, and I will just tell you that there's so much out there happening where we see this happening over and over again. And so I'll give you an example. In some places, there's been orders to shut non-essential businesses at the hazard of criminal sanctions or cutting off their utilities. Now, I want you to think about that. If you are a small business and you have put your life savings into building this small business, maybe it's new, maybe it's decades old, but in any event, it represents what you believe to be a contribution to the community and essential. If we were not in kind of a quasi martial law type of situation in some places, what would happen is the market would simply say whether you were essential or not, and they wouldn't go visit you. They wouldn't exchange and buy and shop at your place because of they didn't find you to be necessary at this time that's going on. So what we're doing is we're seeing this very different point of view where the government is stepping in and distorting some of the marketplace. So we've seen everything from the Pennsylvania governor deciding that the Second Amendment right should be abrogated. So he just said you can't, gun shops aren't going to be essential and you can't reopen. But then after, even though he won the case, he was chastised by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and so he quietly said, okay, you can reopen provided you follow safe health guidelines. And I think, the fact that we have churches that are being closed, we've got people who are law-abiding citizens being taken off the streets. We have one guy, at least, that was paddle boarding off Malibu. There's nobody near this guy who's paddle boarding, and yet they go and they arrest him for being out of his home on non-essential business. These are the types of things that really worry me as I see them happen throughout the country. We are a country that is built on constitutional recognition of God-given rights. That's what has always made us unique. The second thing that's always made us unique is our free market economy, which has allowed a market system that isn't always efficient, but is the most efficient at providing the most creativity and transformation and success in an economy. These are the things that really concern me going forward, is what will be, truly, what will we look like 3 months from now? What will we look like 2 weeks from now? Don't forget, at the end of last week, we were sitting at, for a 2-week period, a loss of 10 million jobs in this country. 10 million people lost their jobs. The idea that we're going to remain closed up for the next 3.5 weeks and potentially have 30 to 35 million people out of work by that time is astounding to me. And it is something that, Randall, in your question, I take it you feel the same I do. We're going to have to find a way to protect the most vulnerable and yet get this economy open and back to work. And that's what I'm committed to doing, and I'm trying to get many of my colleagues to be so committed as well. Appreciate the call, Randall. We're going to go to Will.
Yes, Congressman, how are you?
Fantastic,
Hello.
Will. How are you doing?
Will,
you there?
I'm here. I'm talked to you a few weeks ago and asked you about the hydrochloroquine and about how that was working out, and now it looks like that is, actually paying off a little bit. But specifically, my concern has to do with when we passed this big aid package and put everybody at home and out of work, and we did all this stuff, it was based on the model that said there was going to be millions of deaths. And now they've adjusted that, and the guy's model was wrong in England that created all this panic, and, everything is, those numbers that have been adjusted way, way, way down. And, but we're still at home, and we're still paying out trillions of dollars, and our economy is still on hold because the government, it seems to me, has not adjusted to the new adjusted numbers. The other thing is, too, the at-risk population generally is elderly people, such as myself, retired, probably older than me. I'm not that old, but, that have health concerns. Well, those people don't work. So really, we're not keeping the at-risk population out of a job, but the people that really wouldn't be affected by this, we're keeping from earning a living. And we need to get back to work. How do we get the government to realize that the mission has changed? Now, the next big crisis the Democrats are going to work with is going to be a financial crisis. I mean, we have this thing going based on this virus. But now we're going to have to deal with the financial crisis.
Yeah.
It's one thing after another.
Will, your point is well taken. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a statistician, but I can read the data and the statistics, and there's continually been a revision, almost daily, of the COVID tracking data, and you will see everything from New York to California, and the data that has been aggregated. It basically has cut many numbers just phenomenally. Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx have continued to promote numbers, even though their numbers have been, the models aren't accurate anymore. Dr. Fauci said last week they aren't accurate. He doesn't trust any of the models anymore. So the reality is, I think that we have the technology and the information now to protect the most vulnerable. And I'm talking about you need to not only protect these people that are in elder care facilities, those who have severe illnesses that we've identified that are relative to the case fatality rate, but their caregivers as well need to be the ones that are tested first, along with the vulnerable, so you can make sure that as they interact with the rest of society, they're not carrying anything back into the vulnerable society. We could do that. We should be doing that. Ostensibly, in some places, they are trying to do that. But right now, we still haven't gotten over the initial phase where people are concerned about the unknown. This is a serious illness, and we have to address it seriously. But we also can recognize that that there is a way to get this country back to work, because what you're saying is the same thing I was going to when I was talking about giving some economic context to this whole thing. We have the potential of having rather a long-term negative economic impact, and that is, as you know, poverty can cause as many health concerns and longevity concerns, and we have to take care of this thing. And at the same time, you can't just keep printing money, because then you create what we call inflationary pressures because your currency is deflated, or devalued. So we have a lot of things to think about and to get to with this. And Will, I appreciate what you said. I think you were right on the money. And now we're going to go to Karen. Hi, Karen.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for, I'm new to Arizona, been here 8 months now. We are one nation under God. And I just want to ask the question on this new package, why there was a bill in there to raise Congress's wages, and why there's issues and stuff going on with the Green New Deal. I do not believe in the Green New Deal, and I do not believe in Congress taking a raise. I'm just, very distraught with that.
Yeah, great point. Karen, first of all, on the Green New Deal, let me just say that all of the Green New Deal stuff was jettisoned or thrown out of the package right before it left the Senate. Nancy Pelosi got some other stuff she wanted, so she traded off Green New Deal. She and Chuck Schumer, however, for Phase 4, have already put out their list of Green New Deal ideas in that package, which is why we got to be vigilant on that and try to fight that. Now, on the congressional pay raise, we did not get a pay raise, but what we did get, and I will tell you, I voted against this, but they gave, and I'm trying to recall the exact amount per office. I want to say $50,000 per congressional office, so that we could hire and have the technology that we might not have had otherwise to reach out to constituents. I'm not sure why everybody needed that. One thing they did give us is authority to use leftover money. So like I turned over money I didn't use last year, I turned it back in. They gave us some of that to use to make sure that everybody had the portable computers to work from home, and to also make sure that we could reach out and have technology. I'm not sure why they gave us as much as they did, but that really was the point of it. While we were talking, I was trying to look up. I got an actual list of the amount of money that was given out, and I'm trying to look that up so I can give that to you before we go and get off the air here. But the reality is there was no pay raise, and there was no any kind of additional sick pay or anything like that either. It was all to be for being able to make sure you had the technology to be with your constituents. Okay, I think I found something here. Here we go. So yeah, this was the increase. It was $62,250 to the budget of your office, not for your salary. You don't get any additional money. So that was that, Karen, and so you're supposed to be using it for technology and where necessary, mail. So you can send out mail as well. So that was what that was about. So I appreciate the call. I appreciate your being vigilant to make sure that we're on the stick and not abusing that any more than the tremendous abuse which I've already iterated tonight. We're going to go to Joe in Gilbert. Joe, how are you?
I am good, Representative Biggs. This is Joe Gusick.
Hi, Joe.
How are you this evening?
I'm great. Good to talk to you.
Good. My question is, as always, the cow's already out of the barn with what we've got here. My question is in context, what have you learned from this experience, and what can we do, and what are you going to advocate in the future so that we're not on a national state cohesive strategy, but on a global level, that we're more prepared for a pandemic that does do something different than what we've ever seen before. So I'd love to hear, I always love when you always have some bullet point ideas and things that you will advocate for. So I'd love to hear if you've, up to this point, have you learned anything where you can start to advocate for them to do things differently, if it be assigning this type of issue to our military and having them kind of have more of an overview of it, because obviously President Trump has said this is a war. You also have had people, I've heard a lot of people say this is, a fiscal cliff, potentially. So I'd love to hear what you think we can do. Maybe, what's the old term that our grandmothers used to say? An ounce of cure is better than a pound of
Great question, Joe. And so I'm just gonna actually give you kind of a 30,000-foot overview of some things I think that we as a nation could do better. And the first thing that I will tell you is we have got to make sure that a national stockpile is actually stockpiled. You can't do what happened after the N1H1 10, 12 years ago, whenever that was, and basically use that and not go forward and not replenish that. Second thing you have to do is you need to bring your supply chain home, and the way you do that is in your tax regulatory policies to bring manufacturing home. Right now, it is absolutely totally damaging to us that most of the masks that we use, including the ones that are going to be donated by Apple, are going to be produced in China. And China was producing a lot of our personal protection equipment. They're producing significant amounts of our pharmaceuticals and also the components of those pharmaceuticals. We have got to incentivize these companies to bring them back here. I know that that's anathema to some folks, but the reality is, if they were produced here, we would have had a quicker response for things such as hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine itself, and we would also have more, we would have more test gear, we'd have more PPE gear, which we're short-handed on, and we would have had a greater ability to respond there. That's 2 points. Third point, you have to streamline FDA. FDA, what we're seeing is they've streamlined some areas, but we actually have things that have passed phase 1 that they will not give authority to use even on a limited basis because it hasn't passed phase 2. Now, phase 1, the reason that's important is phase 1 determines whether something is safe for human consumption or not. And so once you've determined that it's safe for human consumption and you've identified risks, any potential risks, you might be able to use some of those medicines without going through the exhaustive, costly, time-consuming efficacy phase, which is phase 2. So those are 3 quick things that I think would have a tremendous impact with us. The fourth thing I would say is I've been grossly disappointed in WHO. I've been disappointed in the information that they've provided, which has been really. Let me just say, I'll leave it at that. I've been very disappointed with the information that they've provided. I would say that one thing that happens is if we did have the supply chain in America for not just the pharmaceuticals, but for equipment and other very sensitive items that we need in whether it's from our defense system to our hospital system to other parts of our economy, that would have been really, really helpful to us to be able to maneuver around and go quickly that way. So those are 4 quick things, but I will just tell you number 5, and this is huge, is that we have got to get our fiscal house in order. Because if you don't have your fiscal house in order, you run into, as you may have the best of intentions with a stimulus package, even if it was a clean stimulus package. Let's say that the $1 trillion or so of pork that was in the last one were gone, you'd be still adding $1 trillion, which is, by the way, the entire discretionary portion of the budget of the United States Congress is about $1.4 trillion. And you are spending that in a day what you would normally spend in a year in discretionary spending. So you could do that if on an occasional basis, on an emergency basis, on an ad hoc basis, if. But our fiscal house is not in order in Congress, and it has to be in order. And now what you're seeing is massive spending bills that are being accelerated. I'd say number 6 is that you have got to have an understanding that each state is different, and you have got to make sure that the states can handle what you're trying to do for them, and that's critical as well. So that's just 6 things off the top, Joe. I think there's so much more to learn from this as we go forward, and hopefully we can take a whole lot of things from this and make this country a better country. But we're going to have a time on our hands for at least the near term. That's why I love the American people. They're set. They're ready to go forward. They want to accomplish these things, and they can. This is a great country with great people, and I have considerable hope for the future. I will just tell you again, for those who we've talked to who need some offline help, We're out of time. We can't take any more questions. We're actually over our time limit. I'll just remind you, 480-699-8239 is a great number to call. That's at my district office. My district director is David Romney. He's got a great staff who can help us here. Our Washington, D.C. staff is also working on issues on a daily basis as well. You can also go to bigs.house.gov, hit the coronavirus tab, and you'll see a lot of information that'll hit in that drop down, which will help you hopefully navigate some of the issues that you may have and questions that you have. I close this by saying thank you. It's an honor to be with you tonight. Thanks for letting me in your home, and I look forward to our next one, which probably will be sooner rather than later. Thank you.